Welcome to the real world. My name is Cameron, joined by Ben on this very special episode. Thank you for joining me.
You're very welcome, man.
Very happy to have you back. We're talking about the Alien franchise. We're going to review and rank every Alien film right now. Let's get started. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Real World Podcast. If you have not done this already, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos. Hit the like button. That helps us a lot. Leave a comment. We want to know what your thoughts are on this franchise. It's been going on since 1979, a long time. And several films to talk about here. So we're going to just jump right in with the original movie, which is Alien, released in 1979, directed by Ridley Scott, starring Sigourney Weaver. Amongst a large ensemble cast, this was her breakout role. And this is one of these movies that I was listening to an interview with Ridley Scott. He had just done The Duelist, his first film. Came out in 1977, same year as Star Wars. He went to see Star Wars, and that kind of rocked his world, right? As it did everyone.
For sure.
And so he had another movie lined up. I think it was some kind of Shakespeare adaptation, something like that. And he decided to abandon that project. 6 weeks later, he got the script for Alien, which was originally titled Star Beast. And he decided, this is the movie I'm doing next. And so he jumped in feet first and developed this film. And the movie is one of the earliest examples of combining the sci-fi and horror genres together into one cohesive whole. And it's a movie that I consider to be a masterpiece, personally. I mean, I really like this movie. It's one of my favorite movies ever made. It's so atmospheric and so moody. You know, the production design, the cinematography, the music, Jerry Goldsmith's score, I think is fantastic. And all of that just combines to make a really unique experience. So I'm a big fan of this. I'll give some more of my thoughts in a minute. But Ben, what are your general thoughts on the first Alien movie?
Well, to add a little backstory, just like I think it was the Indiana Jones podcast that we did last year, sure. I was first introduced to Alien through MGM, now Hollywood Studios' great movie ride. May that ride rest in peace. I still will not forgive Disney for closing that. I had no idea what Alien was until going through on the moving tram through the Nostromo and seeing a robotic animatronic figure of Sigourney Weaver just looking around, being all terrified, hearing a cat meow from the distance, being like, what's that noise coming from? And then hearing just hissing sounds. I couldn't bear to look above me. I knew it was above me. I had no idea what it looked like for like 3-4 years until I finally looked up. I'm like, oh god,
it's freaky.
This is freaky. But in terms of the movie, when I finally got a chance to watch the movie, I was blown away. I know, like beforehand, I didn't think of things constructively, but just visually, it was nothing that I haven't even seen before.
Sure.
Similar to Star Wars in its retro, grounded, technological approach, but just the level of horror and imagery, it just gave me nightmares for the next few days.
Sure. I agree. Yeah, it's great. The movie opens with a really interesting, just kind of brief shots of the ship, right? I mean, it's just like the ship waking up and Mother, you know, what they call the AI that controls the ship. And it's a very quiet, again, just kind of the stillness of the opening really kind of sets the mood. And then by the end of the movie, it's just a frantic kind of chase film. So the kind of trajectory the movie takes is really great. The way it builds to that ending, the way the suspense builds and all of that is just great. And the cast, I had to mention the cast because it's this ensemble cast of characters. They're all these kind of blue-collar, kind of truckers in space was kind of the concept. And they all do a great job, very naturalistic performances, great dialogue. And you have the captain, Dallas, right, played by Tom Skerritt. And he's kind of your hero, right? He's like, I feel like the whole audience gravitates toward that character, right? He's kind of the leader. He's the kind of, you know, guy who's having to make all these tough decisions and things like that. And so... And by the way, we're in full spoilers here, so we're going to go into all the spoilers on all these movies, just so you guys are aware. The timestamps are down below. If you haven't seen one of the movies, you can skip ahead. But when Dallas dies, it's pretty shocking. You're like, what? Okay, so is anyone going to survive now? It's pretty crazy. So I really like what they do with that. And then, of course, you know, Sigourney Weaver becomes the the classic horror trope of the final girl. You know,
Yes.
she's there at the end, and she's the only one who makes it out. So it's really great. I like the camaraderie between the characters. You feel like they've lived on the ship for a while. You know, they have great relationships, and you have the guys who kind of are just in it for the money, and they want to know about how they're going to get paid, and then you have the kind of science guys, and you know, you have all these different personalities working together, which is really interesting to see. And then, of course, there's the iconic chestburster scene with John Hurt. I mean, that moment,
scene.
It still holds up so well.
It does.
It's really amazing how this film, as old as it is, it holds up with, you know, the creature itself. First of all, the design is just great. The way they shoot it, you know, you don't really ever fully see the alien till like the very end of the movie, which I think is super smart. You know, Jaws does the same thing.
Yeah.
A lot of great horror movies do the same thing of, you know, hiding the monster. What you don't see is scarier than what you do see, you know, that whole idea. So they just do a great job with all that. It's just a great looking movie. I did get to listen to the commentary, which had Ridley Scott on it. I've got the Blu-ray, and he, you know, talks a lot about all the details in the film and the making of it and everything, and the cast and crew's on there too, and they have a lot of fun. Terry Rawlings, who's the editor, I feel like editors, I try to bring up editors a lot because they're kind of the unsung heroes of movies, you know, and that movie has such a tight, claustrophobic feel, and it has a lot to do with the editing. You know, it moves really quick, and it's just very well done. So again, huge fan of Alien. We're going to rank these at the end. We'll give our star ratings later. But yeah, this franchise started on a high note, certainly.
It sure did.
You know, it's like one of those that just kind of shocked everyone coming right out of the gate. And so let's move on. Are you ready to move on to Aliens?
I actually have a little bit more to say
go
about
ahead,
it.
Go for it.
The one thing that I have a major respect for it in terms of in relation to, of course, the new Alien Romulus film is just what you said, how claustrophobic it is, but the level of body horror as well.
Oh, yeah.
And the imagery presented through the design of the derelict spaceship that the crew of the Nostromo find on LV-426. Yes. The designs by H.R. Geiger.
Yes. Geiger.
Interesting side story. He actually was supposed to be doing a Dune movie.
Really?
In the 70s, yeah.
Oh, that's right. I heard about that, yes.
There's an interesting documentary about the entire making of that film. He had like this 1,000-page Bible with imagery and most nonsensical naked stuff you could ever have seen in a movie, and because that film flopped, they moved a lot of those ideas into the design of the derelict spaceship, to the Nostromo, and the design of the alien.
Interesting.
That's a very interesting documentary, and I highly recommend it. But yeah, it's also and this is probably a cliche thing to say, the older I get, the more I discover what was put into that movie that I did not notice when I was younger.
100%.
And it's just based off the knowledge that you learn growing up.
Sure.
And it also made me think about just the world building behind it. Like, what is the company? How much power does the company have?
Yes.
What do they want out of everything? Is everything driven by profit or power?
Right.
Who's the alien here? That's the other thing, too. This movie is titled Alien. Yes, there's a creature, but there's a lot of choices that many of these characters make, where it makes you ponder, you know, is this a human thing to do or an alien thing to do? So, I just had to add that. But everything else that you said, it's just a timeless classic. The chestburster scene, nothing so far is ever going to top that scene for me.
Yeah.
Some have gotten close, but that one will always be number one in terms of best chestburster scenes.
Yeah, it's one of the most unexpected moments in movie history, I feel like. Just terrifying and unforgettable.
Yes, for sure.
So, great stuff. All right, guys. We're going to move on now to 1986. So they had tried to get an Alien 2 made for a while, and for whatever reason it didn't happen. And then James Cameron comes along, and he was actually pitching another idea to the studio, and they said, well, you know, we've been trying to make Alien 2 for a while. And he's like, okay, let me check that out. And he was actually writing Rambo First Blood Part 2, and he was writing, there was another movie he was writing, I forget what it was, but he was working on 3 movies at once, essentially.
I think I know the title. It was called Mother.
Oh, yes! Yeah. That's right,
and it was going to be on it centered around more bug-like aliens.
Right.
But a lot of the ideas that James Cameron was going to put in that movie, he decided to move it into his script for Aliens.
Yeah, the whole idea of the Marines fighting these aliens, things like that. Kind of a Starship Troopers-esque idea a little bit. And so he does a great job with this, directing his second movie right after The Terminator. He comes off that with this, and it's just upping the ante. This is the kind of sequel that takes everything from the first one and kind of just goes bigger, right? I mean, it's a bigger cast, it's more action, it's, bigger locations, they're not just stuck on a spaceship the whole time. And so what he does here, I think, is really smart, it's really clever. Definitely pushes it more into the action genre, but doesn't lose the horror elements.
Yes.
The horror elements are still there. There's a lot of suspense here, a lot of stuff like that works really well. But it's a really solid sequel. It's one of the best, I think. And they have a bigger budget here, obviously, so their sets are more elaborate. The tech and stuff that the characters are using are more interesting. The weapons they're using, things like that I just find to be really fascinating. The cast here, again, is great. That they collect another ensemble of actors that I think play well off of each other. Mm-hmm. Michael Biehn, of course, being a big addition here. Sigourney, of course, coming back. You can't forget Bill Paxton. I mean, he's probably the most memorable character. Hudson is just like...
Game over, man! Game over!
I know, the quotes he has are just so iconic.
Yes.
It's great. He's great kind of comic relief character. And then Lance Henriksen, I think, is great as Bishop, coming in as the android, playing off of, what we know from the android in the first film, Ian Holm playing brilliantly.
Bilbo Baggins.
Yeah, he's so good in that. And, he's this much more sinister character. And then when you bring in, Bishop, this new android, Ripley is very put off by him and does not want anything to do with him, does not trust him at all. And he ends up being the hero at the end of the movie, which is a great kind of flip of that thing,
Yeah.
So I thought that was really clever, too, kind of, throwing us curveballs. Can't forget to mention Carrie Henn as Newt.
Yes.
She is fantastic in this. And the special edition, which we have on in the background right now, you get to see more of her and her family.
Yes.
Which is really cool. So I would definitely recommend the special edition. I still don't know if it's my preferred version of the movie necessarily, but what they add in is great. I mean, it's all really good stuff. And so she does a great job in the film. She has, again, several iconic quotes of her own. They come out at night mostly, stuff like that. So it's a great movie. It's very well written. Again, much more action-packed film. There's as the title suggests, there's more aliens here that they have to deal with. And so, again, they just go bigger and wilder with the sequel, which is, I think, what most good sequels should do. If you've got a great idea, the sequel needs to kind of expand on it in some ways that are exciting and interesting. And I think this one certainly does that. So, big fan of it. What are your thoughts on this Alien sequel?
Well, I think in terms of screenplay, this was the strongest written piece out of all of them.
Yeah, sure.
Not to diss on the first film. The first film
was more
driven on the B-movie concept of an alien stowing away on a ship and attacking the crew. This time, it's driven mostly on character and the characterization of Ripley and the people that she meets through the Colonial Marines with Michael Biehn.
Yes.
I forgot the actress who plays Vasquez.
Oh, yeah.
Is another one. I love her performance.
Something Goldstein's her name.
And the actor who played Burke.
Oh, Paul Reiser. He's fantastic. Gosh. Oh, man.
He's been in a lot of stuff lately.
He has,
I've noticed that.
Yeah.
Great actor. And good. Michael Biehn from The Terminator.
That's right.
Great performance.
And so is Vasquez. She plays in
Terminator 2.
Terminator and I think she's in... Yeah, I know she's in T. I think she's in T1 as the waitress, the friend. Maybe?
Is she?
Or is that a different actress?
I think that's a different actress.
Okay. But she is in T2. Yes,
she is definitely in T2. She's a stepmom,
which is cool.
And she looks completely different. I don't know. They gave her they probably gave her a spray tan or something.
Yeah, I know.
But it is her. But going back to Aliens, yes, I agree with you. I love how it just expands on the characterization of Ripley, the life cycle / nature of what they're calling the alien, the xenomorph.
Yeah,
that's when they first introduced the term. They don't call it a xenomorph in the first Alien film.
Right.
And I love the usage of the weapons.
Yeah, they're great.
The bombs, the explosives.
The flamethrowers.
It amazes me how anti-gun
Sigourney
Weaver was when doing this film, yet she was willing to actually just do it. And it's because of that, I think, because she was such a badass, she got the Oscar nomination, which is interesting.
She was so anti-gun, James Cameron had to take her to a gun range and have her shoot off a Tommy gun. And as soon as she did it, she said, this is a lot of fun. She was all in after that. So that was pretty cool. Yeah.
So the set design was cool. I wouldn't say it was as claustrophobic as being on the Nostromo, but I think that was the point. You're on a battleground. A battleground is not claustrophobic. It can be if you're on if you're in no man's land, but this time it's more like, I wouldn't say Vietnam or
it has elements of that
D-Day,
bit.
you know, kind of.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
Yeah, and I love by the final act you are introduced to the Queen.
Oh yeah, what a great addition.
Yeah, who's laying these eggs? It's a question I never thought of when watching the first one. You just see thousands of eggs. I'm like, did they form from the ground up, or did somebody lay them? You know, right. Chicken or the egg? You know?
Exactly.
So, yeah, great explosive finale. Plus, when Ripley goes onto the loader to fight the alien queen at the end, to get away from her. You know.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to say it. We're going to keep it PG here, but
great moment, iconic moment. Great moment with going back to Bishop, you know, and him getting ripped in half. That's an iconic moment as well.
And the milky blood.
Yeah,
it's all white blood.
It's so good. It's so good. So yeah, great movie, great effects.
Yes.
The puppetry, the animatronics that they utilize for the Alien Queen are next level. I mean, it's just incredible stuff. So holds up really well. Again, this movie, I watch it today and I go, man, that's just a great movie.
And it ends on such a hopeful note, you know?
It really does. It really does.
James Cameron seems to be obsessed, and I've noticed this with Aliens, Terminator 2, and Avatar: The Way of Water. He's obsessed with family dynamics.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And it's interesting when you find Ripley in Aliens and she meets Newt. Yes. She finds a new daughter figure. And with Michael Biehn, I wouldn't say like a husband figure, more like a love interest. You know that there's some sort of romantic tension, especially when Michael Biehn is showing Sigourney how to hold a gun for the first time.
Yeah. And there's several shots they point out in the commentary where they wanted to have just those three characters together in several shots. So, yeah, they're definitely playing up that family idea, which I think is very relatable and kind of a universal theme that works really well. So, yeah, excellent sequel.
Yes. It definitely stands among the best sequels ever made.
I agree completely.
For sure.
Yep, definitely. All right, now we're moving on to 1992, and Alien 3 is the title of this one. Which, first of all, just the title itself, I'm like, you couldn't get more creative than that.
It could have been Alienation.
Alienation.
Alienated.
Or Alien, Alien Prison, or anything. Better than Alien 3.
Oh, we gotta plow through this quickly. I'm gonna be very quick about this movie.
Yeah, I agree. It's not great. Yeah. It's a third film that comes in. I feel like it was kind of one of those studio mandates, like we have to make a third one because the second one was so popular, and they bring in David Fincher, his first film. He's talked a lot about how it wasn't the movie he wanted to make, how the studio kind of went over his head. And so what we get is sort of this... I actually think it's a cool concept of the aliens in this prison. It's, again, kind of a one location, and you've got all these different kinds of characters that are, can double-cross each other and all that stuff. But, man, opening up by killing off Newt and Hicks in one fell swoop is just devastating.
It's worse than a chest burster, man.
It really is.
That was a chest burster on the fans of Alien and Aliens.
I agree. It was just a bad move. It just puts a bad taste in your mouth right up front. There's another movie that did this recently called Terminator Dark Fate. It's the same idea. I'm like, why do you do that? It doesn't really make any sense.
I still haven't watched that movie to this day because I found out that happened. I'm like, well, you just killed all of my interest.
Literally, absolutely. So, yeah, it doesn't really connect with me. It doesn't work really on any level. Again, it's a cool idea. I think it could have worked if they had fixed a couple things, but it really doesn't work. It adds in starts to bring in CGI to the whole thing, and it just doesn't feel real. Like those first two movies do. Characters I just really don't care about. I honestly couldn't even tell you one of their names. I mean, honestly,
I don't know.
I've seen this movie once, and I never want to watch it again.
Really?
Yeah. I really don't ever want to even attempt to put myself through this again because it was just, again, nothing I like in this movie. I mean, it's just one of those movies that I just go, there's nothing there for me.
Yeah.
What do you think?
What do I think? Well, like you said, that opening scene was a total betrayal.
Yeah. 100%.
And it doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
No.
They make you think that, oh yeah, before they jettisoned the alien queen out of the Sulaco, she laid an egg somewhere. It makes no sense. They would have checked every single quarter before going into the cryo chamber. And then it causes a fire. Hicks dies.
Yeah.
Newt dies. Bishop is even more deformed than he was previously. And Ripley is just left all alone on this planet full of rapists and murderers.
Right.
And there's not a single character you really pity for, other than that preacher guy, even though he's kind of burdening himself even more and more. Like, I know I don't deserve to live. Like, I don't think it's my call to say who deserves to live or die, but there's just a lot of things. Yeah. And then they decide, let's make it even worse by impregnating Ripley,
right, exactly,
with a xenomorph queen embryo, which I don't know, man, but it was claustrophobic. There were some shots that I did, like there were some POV shots of the xenomorph like climbing like on the ceiling, chasing people down these tight corridors. I thought that was really, really cool. Yeah. The elimination of the creature, I thought it was interesting that they didn't have any guns this time around. They had to use like grease and oil and fire. Yeah, sure. But on a storytelling note and just how it wraps up, this is just not the film that we fans deserved.
I agree completely. Like you're saying, there are some great shots. Like cinematography here is really good. The lighting is really good. Yeah. There's some good editing, production design. It looks good, from a visual standpoint. But story-wise, I totally agree. It just totally fails.
That's the thing with Hollywood, man. They think like, this movie's good. Let's make it as soon as possible. Like, no.
Take your
Bring
time.
in the people who made the previous two so successful.
Right.
Sit them in a room. Do some bullet points. Be like, okay, you know what? This might be good.
Find someone who has a vision, who has like a real great idea for a new Alien movie, a totally different concept and idea, and bring them on. And so,
I don't know if you ever watched the documentary behind the making of Alien 3, but the ideas that they were thinking of were interesting. They thought for one second they were going to put Ripley on this wooden planet ruled over by nuns.
Interesting. Okay.
And so when they see the xenomorph for the first time, they actually think the Antichrist has come, which I'm like, this be interesting. They actually think that they have to use their faith to fight the devil.
Right,
like, okay.
That is an interesting
Very
idea.
interesting concept. Huh. There's this graphic novel, which came out from an alternate script. It was a what if Sigourney Weaver said no to returning for Alien 3. They wouldn't kill her off. They would keep her in cryosleep while Bishop and Hicks would be the lead characters on this space station where they are genetically splicing the genius of the xenomorph into other things. So I read a majority of it, and I think as a movie it could have worked, but they just decided not to do it because Sigourney was not going to be involved, and I understand.
Well, there's another thing. Neil Blomkamp was going to make an Alien 5, after Alien 4, but it would have taken place right after Alien 2, so it would have ignored 3 and 4. And
I think it would have said Ripley would have had dreams saying, I had a dream that I was on this prison planet. I had a dream I was a clone from our future. I wanted to see that movie so bad.
Done a brilliant job. And Sigourney wanted to do it, after
she loved the story.
She was in Chappie with him. And she wanted to do it. It fortunately didn't get made. But
Ridley Scott.
Yeah, he should.
Darn you, Ridley Scott.
I know.
Why?
Well, let's move on to what we've already referenced, Alien Resurrection, 1997, which to me it is almost worse than 3 in some ways. I didn't think it could get worse, right? But the ideas the ideas here are so wacky. It's like I don't know, when they were coming up with these ideas, like, was no producer going, well, maybe we shouldn't do that? It feels like they just put every idea out there and they're like, okay, let's just do all of them. Every bad idea they could come up with, they put into this movie. It's bizarre. Yeah, like you mentioned, clones and wacky stuff. I mean, just bizarre things. There's really nothing I like about this one, honestly. There's Winona Ryder's great. Sigourney's always good in these movies. It's just what they give her isn't great. You know what I mean? And, there's a moment where I remember seeing aliens underwater. That was kind of cool. That was a cool moment.
I would agree. My favorite scene from that film was probably when the xenomorphs were swimming underwater and it felt like Jaws for a second. Like you had no control. The guns don't work. The knives don't work.
Right. That was a cool concept. So, again, there's some interesting ideas that I think could have worked. But it fails. I don't care about the characters. It's just poor effects. Again, more CGI effects that just take it too far, and I feel empty and just hollow.
The human flesh xenomorph at the very end.
I know.
With the screams, it's just...
Yeah.
I don't even want to talk about the design.
It's one of those things.
It's disgusting.
Like, you just don't.
But it's disgusting to the point where it's like, it's not compelling disgusting.
Yes,
it's just sickening disgusting.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't want to see that stuff. Wow.
I agree.
This doesn't work for Alien. It really jumped the shark for me.
Yes, 100%. That's a great way to put it. Are we ready to move on to the next one? Because I feel like we're already done.
There wasn't anything redeemable about this film. In my mind, I just pretend Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection never happened.
Yeah,
they never happened.
I totally agree. I'll never watch them again. Like I said, when I do a rewatch of these movies, I don't watch them because they're not worth watching.
They aren't. They just aren't.
All right, let's move into just briefly. The Alien franchise did a crossover event film. Called Alien vs. Predator. Came out in 2004.
Yeah.
And then they got a sequel called Aliens vs. Predator Requiem. Came out in 2007. And both of these movies, I don't hate the idea. I think it's actually a compelling idea.
Yeah.
I just, again, feel like the execution isn't fully there.
I
feel
agree.
like under a better director with a better script, this could have been really interesting, and we could have, learned a lot more about this. And they develop a lot of mythology here and things like that. But it's the human characters that I just don't connect with. I don't really care about. They're kind of just cannon fodder for the creatures to destroy, And there's kind of some cool, action beats with the alien and the predator fighting, and I feel like these are kind of just fan fiction films in many ways. They're kind of fun to watch for me. Like I kind of enjoy them in some ways, but they're not like great cinema.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That I'm kind of looking for. They're kind of like B-movie, cheesy, fast food movies.
Yeah, I agree. The first AVP movie, I see it like Godzilla versus Kong. I don't know if that's a worthy comparison, but
I could see that.
It's one of those brain turn-off guilty pleasure films where you just don't need to think. You just need to watch. And if you think it's cool to see a xenomorph fight a predator, then you're going to be entertained.
Yeah, right.
But other than that, there are no compelling characters whatsoever.
No, not really.
The way it wraps up is very 50-50. And then when you get to Aliens versus Predator Requiem, the... Spoiler territory, guys.
Yes.
I thought it was interesting to have a Predator-Alien hybrid.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah.
I would have preferred to just focused on just that hybrid and that hybrid alone and see how different it would be compared to being an alien or a predator. That would have been interesting.
Right.
Let that be like the fish out of water, but they decided not to go with that. They decided to make it like a... kind of like a king or an alpha. I don't know.
Yeah, it's an
but
interesting concept.
Then there's the entire hospital scene, which...
I know.
Disgusting.
Yeah. A lot of gore in that second one. A lot of gore. I mean, they went over the top with the amounts of blood on that.
That was like 2000s Hollywood, though. When everything had to be like dark and brooding and filled with gore and guts.
Right.
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing when it comes to horror. Sometimes it could be a good thing, but the way they decide to use it, it's like slasher porn.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Sure. Yeah, it doesn't work. It's very schlocky and just kind of, again, very B-movie-esque, just very typical kind of horror flick, right? All the human characters are like these young people, and they're just cannon fodder.
They've got no essence whatsoever.
Yeah, totally.
No essence.
And it's that movie also, the second one, is very dimly lit.
Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't really look good. You can't really tell what's going on half the time. A lot of it's in the rain.
Yeah.
Very dark. It's just kind of... The first one, I agree. I think it's better because it's at least a unique location. It kind of almost feels like a treasure hunting movie. Like they're in like a pyramid. It's like kind of a cool vibe to it, at least. A cool location. Whereas the second one, like you're saying, it's just a hospital and like they're in the woods and it's just... It's very cheap. That movie feels very cheap. So
I will say some deaths are sad, though. I would say it definitely has one of the saddest deaths I've seen besides, the death of Newt from Alien 3.
Sure.
Seeing a kid get face hugged, that was torturous for me.
Yeah.
I understand it's horror, but that's reaching a point where I'm like, I just can't see that. When it's adults, it's weird to say that I'm okay watching adults die, but kids, it's just,
It is, it's different.
Their lives are just starting,
I know, I agree. All right,
Anywho,
let's move along to Sir Ridley Scott's return to the franchise.
Yeah, it was exciting when I first heard about it.
2012, we had Prometheus released in theaters, and it was kind of billed as this prequel to the Alien franchise, taking place a long time before the first movie, and kind of setting up everything, right? That's kind of idea here is kind of the origin of the alien, the origin of where did the xenomorph come from, that kind of concept. And it's kind of compelling, as for fans of the franchise, it's like, oh yeah, I definitely want to check that out. I remember seeing this in theaters, and I liked it pretty well on the first viewing. I think on subsequent viewings it hasn't held up quite as well.
Yeah.
I think the movie tries to do a lot, and it sometimes succeeds, sometimes doesn't. It's kind of one of those movies that it's trying to do, set up the xenomorph and where did they come from and who are the engineers and introduce us to a new ensemble of human characters and what's their backstories and all their... So it's just, there's a lot of movie there, I feel like. It's kind of enough for 2 or 3 movies almost. Yeah. And so it really, I applaud it for what it tries to do. And there's some really interesting themes here, faith versus science and all these kind of ideas that I think are worth exploring. But again, it's the execution I don't feel like is fully there where I fully connect with the story, with the characters, with everything. And I like all the actors here. Charlize Theron, Idris Elba. I think Noomi Rapace does a great job in the lead role. Logan Marshall Green is really good as well. Their relationship was really interesting to me.
Michael Fassbender.
Fassbender to me, this one and the next one we're about to talk about, he's really the reason to watch those movies because his performance is so good.
It is.
It's so compelling. It's so interesting. It's, getting one of these androids... We're kind of with him through a lot of the film. It's really kind of his story almost, and a lot of it. You get to see his routine and what he does watching Lawrence of Arabia and dyeing his hair and like doing all these interesting things that we haven't seen these kind of characters do before. And so I really liked it. I really liked that performance a lot. I think the visuals are great here. It's another movie that just looks fantastic, from the effects to the production design to the cinematography. It all looks really, really good. And it's just another one of those where I feel like maybe another draft of the script could have helped maybe a little bit or something. Just, tightening it up a little bit and, delivering some really fascinating, interesting characters that I think could have made this movie stand up there with, the first 2 movies. But for me, it just kind of fails on certain levels. So what are your thoughts on that first prequel, Prometheus?
I remember when they first announced it and I was excited.
Yeah.
But the more I think about it, the way they marketed this movie damaged its reputation.
I kind of agree with that.
I think if they went the Split way, when
don't
Split
even
came out,
talk about the Alien connection.
No one knew that Split was technically a sequel to Unbreakable. Right. If we had no idea this was a prequel to Alien, then when you see at the end the first idea of a xenomorph fully developed, I think everyone would have been through the roof being like, wow, this actually is really, really good. I like it. But because we knew about it, because the trailers made you think like, oh yeah, they're going to come across the alien and you don't really come across something else, it kind of is... it's kind of like a betrayal.
Yeah, it's a letdown.
But I will say the visual effects are cool.
Definitely. Yes.
I'm kind of against the way they showcased their technology because it didn't look retro.
Good point.
And broken down. Everything looked clean.
It was all like hologram.
Way too
CGI.
clean.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's a good point. Right.
The retro rundown aesthetic design is one of the reasons why I like the very first Alien film to begin with. So to call this a prequel, I just don't get it why they have to be so clean,
I agree. You're
but I will say some of the characters are interesting. Like Charlize Theron is interesting. Idris Elba is interesting. Noomi Rapace and Michael Fassbender, they're interesting.
Right.
But
they don't give us enough. There's not enough substance.
There isn't enough substance, and I know it warrants a sequel, and I was actually on board for a sequel.
Sure.
But looking back on it, it kind of degrades in quality and satisfaction for me.
I agree.
But it's not a failure compared to Alien 3 or Alien Resurrection.
Right. Yeah, I would watch this over the
If you had no idea what Alien was, if you didn't, you just wanted to watch a sci-fi movie, Prometheus, I think you'll be satisfied enough.
I agree. Completely.
That's how I would picture Prometheus.
Yeah. Good rundown. I like that. Let's jump into the sequel. Alien Covenant. 2017 this was released. And so this one has a pretty significant time jump from the first one. We don't have really any returning characters other than Michael Fassbender, which I was so glad that they brought him back because, like I said, he's a very compelling character from the first movie. And here he's, just going to another level. I mean, because he's playing multiple characters and he's doing a lot here. So really, really, again, maybe even better performance, I would say. Performances, you could say. In this movie. It is a slightly better script. It has more of the alien flavor in there. You get more of the horror, more of the gore, more of the suspense, some action in there, which I think is good. New cast additions, again, kind of forgettable human characters. Billy Crudup I like as an actor, but even his character I don't think was all that compelling. Yeah. So it's just kind of another one where it's kind of much the same from Prometheus, but they are at least doing some more alien-esque things that I think kind of keep it interesting for Alien fans. And again, going further into the kind of history and backstory of this whole world, the engineers and all that stuff, which I thought was, kind of cool to find out. At least. Maybe not as interesting as it could have been or should have been. It is a bigger scale film, too. Yeah. Which I appreciated, when they go bigger. So, yeah, again, it's kind of one that I feel like is forgettable on a character level, but story-wise, it's a little bit more interesting at least, and Fassbender gets to do some really cool stuff. So that's what I have to say about Covenant. I think it's maybe slightly better than Prometheus, but still not one that I'm clamoring to return to necessarily. Yeah. So what do you think about Covenant?
I think when it comes to Covenant, I kind of blame ourselves on the response to Prometheus because I assumed the studio was like, oh, these people are upset, we got to give them xenomorphs no matter what. Because they thought like that, right? The sequel had no idea what it wanted to be.
It's kind of two movies at war with itself. Yeah, I get that.
And so it opens up with music similar to the first Alien film, and then we come across a ship that's darker lit, more kind of claustrophobic looking, but not run down enough. Yeah. And then we're introduced to these characters who are half-baked, unfortunately. Yeah, they are. And then Michael Fassbender, he's cool. He's the only reason why I want to watch it. Absolutely. For both Walter and David's sake.
I kind of want to just cut all his scenes together and just watch that as the movie, like a Fassbender cut. It's just all his scenes, because he is so good in these, and the movies around him just aren't up to par necessarily. Yeah.
Then, I think about this. I feel like that there was a story in between Prometheus and Alien Covenant which they could have told, and they told a part of it in that flashback. I would have just stayed there. Yeah. Because, both Noomi Rapace and Michael Fassbender, they go to this planet and David decides to wipe them all clean after what they did to him and Mr. Wayland. Yeah. And then when Noomi Rapace wakes up, she realizes what David has done, and she probably tries to kill him, and he ends up killing her and using her body to continue his experiments.
That's right.
Which now he calls himself this new zoologist and alchemist. Right. A man of different studies, and he's the one who's responsible for the creation of the xenomorph. Yeah. I don't like that, to be honest with you. It ruins the mystery of the very first Alien, not knowing what this thing is. So if you count Prometheus and Alien Covenant as a part of the lore, some people do, some people don't. It ruins the mystery for me. Yeah. So...
Yeah, same thing with the space jockey. The space jockey that was introduced in that first Alien movie, the derelict spaceship. It's like, who is this? Oh, that's such an interesting thing. And we didn't really need to know.
Yeah, we did not. It could have been like a different alien. There could have been different aliens out there. This is just one of them. The most dangerous out of all the aliens that you could come across. They could have just done it like that, but... I don't know.
That's the problem with prequels. It's like you want to know more. You want to reveal more of this world and the story and expand on it. But the more you give away, the less mystery there is, and the less interesting it is, because it leaves less to the imagination. Yeah.
And then the third act comes, and they decide to play the same trope. Oh, the alien's still on board. Let's just jettison it out into space, and we'll be good. Yeah. Then the ending comes, and I will say the ending was a neat twist.
Sure.
Was a neat twist, and at the end... I know Ridley Scott said, I had one more film in mind. Thought, you know what, just wrap it up. Let's just see where it goes. But I wasn't fully as enthused as I was when Prometheus was coming out or Covenant came out. I knew if that film was made, it probably would end on a whimper.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and that was it for the Alien franchise for a while.
For a while. For nearly 10 years.
Yeah.
Because the latest film, Alien Romulus, released this year, 2024, is the next film in the franchise. And so, yeah, coming off of those, my hopes were not high for this.
Yeah.
My hopes were pretty low. I was going, okay, they're going to do another Alien movie, and the trailer was good. I mean, it was a good trailer. I was like, okay, they've got all the Alien-esque things in there. It looks like that I'm probably going to enjoy for that. But what surprised me about this movie is it really it does all the stuff that I wanted those movies to do. Right, it fleshes out the world more.
Yes.
We get to go to the mining colony and see what life is like for just a regular person. It is another new setting that we haven't seen before. Most of it's on this derelict space station, which is a cool idea. A new cast of characters. All these things that I've been wanting from the franchise, basically. I feel like this is a real return to form for the Alien franchise, because it not only pays proper respect to what's come before, it really does, to me, feel very fresh and new and different. Not just because of the locations, but again because of the characters here. We start with Kaylee Spaney and David Johnson, two actors that David Johnson, I've never seen anything from him. Spaney, I've seen her in Civil War, and I think that's it. That's all I've seen her in. So getting to go in with, and the rest of the cast I haven't seen either. So getting to go in with an unknown cast is always fun, because you can really connect with them as the characters, right? It's not an actor you're seeing playing a character, it's a character. And so I really like that approach. I liked all these characters. I don't know about you, but I really found like even the characters that were kind of abrasive, I kind of got their point of view. Like they had a strong motivation for the way they were behaving and what they were doing. So I like all the characters, which makes the suspense so much more palpable.
Yes.
When you're like, no, I don't want anything bad to happen to them. I want them to make it. So this movie just delivers. I mean, the writing, the acting, the direction, Fede Alvarez really went all out here. I mean, just did a great job, had a unique vision, and again, it has that perfect balance of when you're doing these franchise films, it's hard to, you want to make it your own, but you want to also make sure it feels like it's part of this ongoing saga. And I think they nailed it here. I think they really nailed it, because like you were just talking about, the rundown retro future is at the forefront here. I mean, the production design is fantastic. It all looks like it's a very lived-in world, and it's just been battered, and especially the space station. I mean, because it's literally been ravaged by the aliens, right? And so they nailed it on that front, on a visual front. Visual effects, again, outstanding. I know he used a lot of practical effects here, a lot of puppetry and animatronics, along with the CGI. Always the way to go, because it just has that tactile feel to it, that texture that you can just tell that when an actor's reacting off of something real, you can just tell. So I think they nailed it there. Wallfish with his score, again, paying respect to both James Horner and Jerry Goldsmith and their scores for the first two movies, peppering in some stuff from Prometheus as well, and of course doing his own thing as well. So had a great blend there as well. And so again, this is one that I just feel like really brought the franchise back. I feel like I'm ready to see the next Alien movie now. You know what I mean? Like I haven't felt that way in a long time. So give us. I'll have a few more thoughts. But what do you think about Romulus? What are your thoughts coming out of this? We just both saw it this weekend.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
I would say like you, when they announced this movie, I was a bit reserved.
Yeah. Right.
I didn't have any trust, especially after what Ridley Scott was doing with Prometheus and with Covenant. I'm like, I just want an alien film where I feel scared again and everything feels real. It could be like the worst thing to come out of my nightmare, something like that. And so then the trailers start coming out. The first teaser, I actually was the first time I sparked any hope.
Yeah, sure.
For me, that is just seeing the design of something like the Nostromo from the first film, and then hearing the music, I'm like, this actually feels like this feels like that world that I like.
Yes.
And then hearing interviews from the director saying, I'm a big fan of the first two films, and this story is going to take place between the first two films. When he immediately said that, I'm like, I'm on board.
Totally.
If this takes place between the first two films, I'm on board, because there's a lot of story that can be told within those two movies. And so I think by the end, like you said, this was a return to form.
Yeah.
I love the production design. Like the very first film, the production design really creates a character for this film.
Yep.
Where everything's claustrophobic and tight, and you have no clue what's going to happen next. The action set pieces designed for this film, starting with the cryo chamber, with all those face huggers, an army of face huggers, kind of taking it with a Jaws approach, not knowing what's in the water, and then them going through a hallway full of face huggers who actually trace people by body heat. I never thought of it that way.
I didn't either. Yeah.
And then the scene where later on, we're going into spoilers. I'm sorry about this, but the one that really impressed me the most was them turning off the gravity and floating through pools of acid.
Oh man,
that was cool.
That was awesome. What a great idea.
And then as the movie's going, they're getting back to the ship. I'm like, okay, this is fun.
Yeah.
This is fun.
Yeah.
If this is how it ends, I'm going to be kind of not happy. But then the third act, though, the last 20 minutes, I had a feeling it's actually giving off some controversy to some people, but I think the third act's one of the scariest things
100%.
I've ever seen come out. And because they stayed true to the promise that, yes, this is actually bringing the Alien franchise back to its horror roots. Bravo.
100% agree.
So yeah, production design, the music. I love how steampunk it gets.
Oh yeah,
some moments.
Yeah,
the performances of Kaylee Spaney.
Yeah.
I saw her in Priscilla and Civil War.
Yeah.
And she's gonna be in Ryan Johnson's next Knives Out movie, which I cannot wait for. And you said David Johnson, that's his name? Who plays Andy?
David Johnson, yes.
Yeah, Andy's character. Phenomenal. If I'm thinking hard enough, he could be my favorite android out of all of them. I love Bishop, but this one, he has just nuance.
So many layers.
And flaws.
Yeah.
We'd never seen an android with actual neurological flaws before. So
fantastic idea.
Great idea. Characters I could understand. They actually had arcs and reasons why they are the way they are. You may not like them, but they give reason as to why they think in that way. But what a surprise. I was really happy with Alien Romulus, and if they don't make any more, if they don't, I'm happy with just Alien, Alien Romulus, and Aliens, and then call it quits.
Yes, that's a great trilogy.
Oh, but last thing, I had no idea that they were going to reference Prometheus at all.
Yeah.
When they talked about Prometheus, I'm like, you know what? It works within this context.
It did.
And it doesn't go too far into that.
Yes, and that's the thing about all the callbacks. You know, there's several callbacks, and none of them really take you out of the movie. All of them work in context of the film. If you hadn't seen any Alien movie, you're gonna be fine. You're not gonna be lost. You know, going what was that a reference to? They do it very quickly and kind of, you know, it's just part of the story, a natural part of the story. So that was all really smartly done.
I agree.
If I have any negatives, it might be one of the callbacks that get away from her line, which I felt, again, it didn't throw me out necessarily. It kind of worked for the moment and for the character.
What scene was that?
When he's Andy has the gun and
he says the line. That was a bit like, okay, you did not need to say that.
Yeah, you didn't need it. You know, get away from her was enough. I didn't think he needed the other part. It kind of out of character for him a little bit. But
Kaylee's final line, though.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a great line.
That worked completely. The other thing that threw me out just a little bit, and I liked it more as it went on, but was when Ian Holm came back as Ash. Well, not as Ash, but as a different android named Rook.
Yeah.
You know, he's obviously passed away years ago.
Yeah.
They of course got approval from his estate, and they were all on board with it. But initially, it was a little jarring. I didn't mind it. I think the way it was shot in kind of like full light, it didn't look great.
Yeah.
But as it went on, they had him in shadow more, and it looked really good.
Yes.
So that was the only nitpicky thing that I could say I maybe didn't care for.
Yeah.
I think all the rest of it worked really well. Again, those innovative ideas with the 0G and that alien human hybrid at the end. It was
of nightmares.
It was a little off-putting, I'll be honest, because I when you have a pregnant woman in a movie, you instantly kind of just want her to be. I'm like, I really hope she's the one that survives because she's got two people, and
But then she decides to inject herself with the stuff, and I'm like, no.
That was the thing that I think made that work for me, is because they set that up, and that if she takes this, it's not going to end well because they show you what happened to the rat, right?
Yeah.
And so she thinks obviously she's saving herself by doing this, but the fact that it was her doing it, not another character, made me kind of be okay with it. But it was still. It's still very disturbing, and that was the intention, right? Of course, that's what they're going for. But it's almost taking it too far past that line of like, where do you know what I mean? Like, where's going too far with that kind of thing? Like,
and then her demise, how she dies. It's like,
I know. It was sad. It was sad. It was more sad than disturbing, though. I think that's why it worked.
Her demise was definitely the saddest out of all the deaths.
Yes, and they built that up throughout the movie, and so that's why I think it works for me, and it really delivers. So. Yeah. Great movie. I mean, really, it just again, everything I could have hoped for, it had, and it surprised me with things that I wasn't even expecting at all. So that's why I came out of this very, very enthusiastic about this film and about potential future. If they decide to make another one, I'd love to see more of these characters and where they would go next.
I believe the next thing that they're doing is a series on Hulu called Alien Earth.
I've been hearing. Yeah, that's been around for a while.
They actually they released a teaser in the movie theater that I went to. I went to Cinemark.
Really? Okay.
For Alien Earth. No one was paying attention, but I was just looking on the screen. It said Alien Earth. Like, Alien Earth. That's the name of the title. And I'm hearing that it takes place before Alien. So, and it takes place on planet Earth. So I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen if they actually get a xenomorph down on Earth. But
they've talked a long time about how this could. There's several references, like subtle references, to it being in the same world as Blade Runner. So that could be an interesting crossover.
That would be fantastic.
Because they are doing a Blade Runner series as well.
They are. $20.99.
It's on it's on Max, I think, and that's on Hulu. So probably won't cross over in the series, but maybe in the future. Fede Alvarez also came out recently. I don't know if you saw this interview where he talked about how he wants to potentially do another Alien vs. Predator movie with Dan Trachtenberg, who did Prey, and co-direct it, which is a cool idea.
Prey revived my interest in Predator, and Alien Romulus revived my interest in Alien. If you just tell a good story with likable characters and stakes, and give a good reason for the Predator and the Alien to come back, then by all means, you've got my ticket.
And you don't have to go bigger scale. You can bring both of those movies, bring it back down into a more intimate film. Which is brilliant. Yeah, I just rewatched Prey last night because I was like in the mood for another Alien-esque kind of experience, and I was like, I'll watch Prey again. I haven't watched that since it came out. Yeah, and it's a great movie. So I would be all for it if they did another Alien versus Predator. Why not? If you have those guys on board and they have a great story, I'd be in. Yeah. So this is a great movie. It really just kind of blew me away, honestly. And Carson, I don't know if you saw our reaction, but he was very enthusiastic about it as well. And very excited about potential, future. I think this is maybe his favorite of the entire franchise.
Really?
I think it is.
Well, I can understand that because Alien Romulus is comprised of characters around the same age as him.
True.
And me. And
you.
So.
True. Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. So we're going to move along now, guys, and we're going to jump into our rankings of the Alien franchise. Are you ready to do this? All right, folks, this is it. This is our Alien franchise ranking every movie in the Alien franchise. All 9 films. We are counting the Alien vs. Predator films as well. The prequels, the sequels, the in-betweenquels, all of them. So we're going to go ahead and rank them all right now. Do you want to start or do you want me to start? I'll start. Let me start.
Sure.
I'll start with my number 9.
Okay.
My least favorite. We're going to start at the bottom.
Okay.
It's Alien Resurrection. Do you concur?
Yes.
No? You do? Okay, good. I thought we might be on the same page with the bottom.
At first it was one thing, but now looking back on it, I'm more... I think Resurrection's more of an abomination than this other film.
I agree. I mean,
Resurrection.
It's close for me between these bottom two because my number 8, I think, is probably your number 8. Alien 3? Or no? Did you go with something else?
I was thinking AVP Requiem.
Really?
Actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, let me give my reasoning. Alien 3, like we said, it's tough because it does look good.
Yeah.
Visually, again, cinematography, production design, Fincher knows how to shoot a movie, right? But again, that betrayal, man.
Yeah.
I can't get over that betrayal.
Yeah.
It's like killing off two of my favorite characters. I mean, you build that relationship with Newt over that entire second film and Hicks, and then they're just off in the opening scene. It's like, it's just so frustrating, honestly.
I agree.
So that's why it ended up at 8 for me. Why do you have Requiem at 8?
Well, I was just thinking about, I had no feeling whatsoever watching that movie. Alien 3.
Good point.
I did feel some stuff.
Okay, sure.
But a majority of that feeling was just betrayal
Yeah,
and depression.
Negative. Yeah, sure. Right.
So, with AVPR, it's cool,
Yeah,
but I'm not invested with a single character in that film.
yeah. I feel the
And it
same
makes
way.
me angry about some character choices, some government choices.
Yes.
And it's just, it's just there to be there.
Well, that's what I have at 7. So I'm not
Okay.
too far off from you. I have Alien vs. Predator Requiem at 7.
Okay.
It's just... It's bad. It's bad. But I almost feel like it's kind of intentionally bad. Like, they weren't trying to make a great Alien movie. They were just trying to make a silly horror movie.
Yeah.
And they achieved that. So, I don't know. I mean, it's one of those that, again, I don't want to watch any of these bottom 3 ever again. But,
My next one is Alien 3.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So we just had those two flipped.
Yeah, we just had to flip.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, gotcha. All right, well, I'll jump into my 6th then. That's where I put Prometheus.
Okay.
Prometheus, I feel like, again, a lot of potential, just didn't quite deliver for me.
Okay.
Is that what you have at 6, or do you have something else at 6?
I have Covenant, actually.
Do you? Okay, so you
Yeah.
put Covenant a little bit.
It's never fully realized. That's why.
Yeah,
it's cool, but
I
it's
get
just
that.
never fully realized.
Right.
Has no idea what it wants to be.
Good point.
That's why I think it's less than Prometheus
Yeah.
and the other films.
Right. Well, I have Covenant at 5.
Okay, cool.
Because I think Covenant, I prefer it to Prometheus, I think just because of how much bigger it gets, how much wilder it gets. I do get some cool xenomorph action, and Fassbender, man. Those dual performances he delivers, I feel like, honestly, there might be 2 of his best performances he's ever given. They're up there. I mean, I'm a huge fan of him as Magneto and many other things that he's done, but that's way up there. So that's why I have Covenant at 5. What do you have at 5?
I have AVP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Alien vs. Predator.
Right.
It's shallow,
Yeah.
but it knows what it is. That's the thing. It knows what it is. And it was entertaining for the most part, so...
Yeah. That's why I put it at 4.
Okay.
So that's my number 4.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
Because that's one that first of all, this movie hit me at the right time.
Yeah.
2004, I would have been like 12 when it came out. So it was like the perfect movie for me at that time. I was like, I mean, I've seen the movie probably more than any of the other ones. Because when I was a teenager, I watched it over and
I can
over
believe
and
that.
over. It was PG-13, so it wasn't R-rated. It was something I could watch, and I just had a ton of fun. I think that might have actually been my introduction to both franchises.
Really?
I don't think I had seen a single Alien or Predator film before watching that.
Okay.
Interesting, huh?
Very interesting way to get
jump
into
in.
the franchise.
Because it is
both.
technically the first film, if you think about it, in both franchises. Well, I guess it doesn't take place before the first Predator, but or Prey now.
Yeah.
But it takes place before any of the Alien movies, before Prometheus or any of that. So
It feels contradictory now. The more I
Kind
think
of
about
does.
it's contradictory. So what is canon? What's not canon now? You know?
I don't know.
Maybe you can just decompartmentalize AVP and put it in an alternate reality.
It's its own timeline.
I mean,
Yeah.
we are living in a multiversal saga when it
That's
comes to
right.
Hollywood.
That's right.
Everyone's doing the multiverse now.
That's right.
So you can just treat it like
Yeah,
that.
That's right. So that's what I had at 4.
Okay.
Just again, fun action movie. That's how I look at that one. And again, a cool setting. I like the kind of pyramids and all that stuff. Okay. What do you have at your 4?
My number 4 is Prometheus.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, like, these in the middle too. I'm kind of interchangeable because Prometheus definitely has a lot that I like about it too.
Yeah, I think a part of the reason why I appreciate it a bit more is how it is naturally connected into what happens in Romulus.
Oh, sure.
It's a good
sure,
callback,
yeah.
being like, you know what, you don't need to have seen
Yep.
Prometheus, but
Right.
I'm
It
actually happy with that it was called back. The more I think about it,
Yeah, why not? I
you
mean,
know,
it
you don't
doesn't
need to
hurt
have
the
seen
movie,
it. Yeah, it
you know?
doesn't. Heck, you don't need to have seen. You don't need to see any other film in the franchise to understand Prometheus. It's like its own thing.
Totally.
Yet somehow it has tissue, which will one day evolve into xenomorph tissue. So
It doesn't. I mean, it really stands apart because it doesn't even have the alien title in it. You know, it's just called Prometheus. So
yes,
yeah. Okay, excellent. Well, that was your 4. So my number 3, as it stands now, is going to be Alien Romulus.
same here.
Oh, really? We both have that at 3. Okay, cool.
Alien Romulus.
Yeah, Romulus.
It's a great
look,
film.
It could end up getting higher, maybe. I don't know. It's one of those that just really impressed me, though. And it's 4.5 stars. I mean, it's way up there for me. It's like I think it's one of the best of 2024 that I've seen this year. It's of the films I've seen this year. It's easily in the top 5, I would say.
I think in terms of horror and a film that actually scared the living daylights out of me, especially one jump scare. I think you know which jump scare I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, it's definitely the scariest film I've seen.
Yeah.
In terms of horror, and I've seen Long Legs, and I've seen Late Night with the Devil, in a Violent Nature.
Okay.
I still need to see Immaculate, I believe it's called.
Oh, yeah.
But
They just put that on Prime or Max or Hulu
maybe.
or somewhere.
I don't know.
Cool. All right, so we're on the same page with Romulus. Now
Yes.
let's see if we're on the same page with the top 2.
Okay.
My number 2 is Aliens.
Same.
Oh, really? Okay, cool. All right, so our top 3 are all the same.
Yes.
Yeah,
is.
Aliens, like we talked about, perfect sequel, right? I mean,
It
it's
is.
just does everything that first movie does, amps it up, gives us more great characters, more great quotable lines. Like you said, the screenplay is just fantastic. The dialogue, to the story, to the themes, the effects. I mean, the amount of aliens in it just is mind-boggling. The fact that they were able to put all that on screen, and the action is great, and all of it. So, yeah, that definitely is worthy of the top 2.
Yes. And then number 1.
Number 1, the original.
The original, 1979, Ridley Scott.
Alien. I mean, it's just, again, like I said up top, I consider it a masterpiece. A
It is.
complete cinematic masterpiece. If you want to, what is the best sci-fi horror ever? It's easily Alien. I go straight to Alien. It's right there.
Yeah.
Honestly, even separating those genres, if you just want to talk about my favorite sci-fi movies, it's probably in there too.
I would agree.
In the top 5 or 10. Just talking horror, it's in the top 5 or 10. So, great movie. I still think it's one of Ridley Scott's best.
Oh, for sure.
I mean,
especially in contrast to what he's making now. A lot of questionable films, but
Sure.
nothing has been on par with that of Alien. I mean, maybe Gladiator, the first Gladiator.
Sure.
I like the first Gladiator,
Right.
but Alien will probably be his magnum opus.
I agree. That and Blade Runner for me.
Yeah.
That and Blade Runner are easily his best movies.
I agree with
I'm
that,
a big
too.
fan of, like you mentioned, Gladiator, and Kingdom of Heaven. I think is really underrated. He's made so many great movies, but yeah, this one stands atop. Just again, for the visual language of that movie, the production design, the camera work, the lighting, the way it's been imitated time and time again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes very well, sometimes very poorly, but it stands alone, I think, as one of the great movie experiences that you could ever have. So it's a must-see movie, I consider.
I second that.
Excellent. Great stuff. Well, Ben, thanks for joining me, man. Anything else you want to mention about the franchise as a whole, your feelings on it, your hopes, your dreams for Alien?
You know, I would say for those who have never seen Alien before, I highly recommend the first film. And if you want to explore it, definitely watch Romulus, definitely watch Aliens. And if you want to watch the other films, by all means do.
Sure.
This is just Cameron and my opinion on the franchise.
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean that we are deacons of heaven who are declaring that this is a blessing and this is a sin.
Right.
Don't treat it like that.
No. There's plenty of people who like those other movies a lot. A lot of people who think Prometheus and Covenant are some of the best. So,
Yeah.
let us know your thoughts in the comments. We want to know what you think of this franchise. If you're a huge fan of, hey, maybe you even like the third and fourth films.
Yeah.
Maybe you like the Alien versus Predator. Those are your favorite ones. Let us know. We want to have a conversation with you. We're not here to gatekeep or to judge. This is all subjective. This is art, right? So everyone's going to come away with a different feeling. I know I've seen several reviews that think Romulus is not that great. So there's people on all sides of the spectrum here, and so we want to have a conversation though and explore why. Why do you think that way? What are your thoughts on it? And what do you think worked or didn't work? And so that's what's fun about this, and that's why we do this podcast. We want to have conversations about cinema. The greatest storytelling medium that mankind has ever invented, that we're huge fans of, and that we dive into often. I try to watch a movie every day. Honestly, every night before I go to bed, I usually turn on something. So it's a lot of fun to talk about these. So Ben, again, thank you for being here. Thank you all for listening. Make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can follow us in the description below to links there. Check out our website. We've got a blog. I've done a alien timeline. If you want to watch these in timeline order, you can check out the blog post on that.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, I have to send it to you. It's really cool. Ben is on Letterboxd as well, so make sure you follow him there. We'll see you guys next time right here on The Real World.
Goodbye, guys.